Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the bill.
On the bill, Mr. Stec.
Thank you. Wow. We have a very diverse bunch here in the chamber, and that's a positive. We've got a lot of different experiences, life experiences, from childhood up to old enough to be grandpa. When we've got a law enforcement issue that comes up for debate, I think we're blessed to have a lot of police officers, former law enforcement officials here, so we can draw from their experience. And it matters. We may not always agree with their conclusion, but I'd be the first to say, you know, a guy that walked the beat for 20 years and then volunteers his time in service to the state coming here, that person probably knows a lot more about law enforcement than I do, and I pay attention. As is probably the case for any legislature, we got a lot of lawyers in the room. And love them or don't love them, they know a lot about the law. They have a lot of experience in courts. When we start talking about court matters and OCA issues, being a good guy / non-attorney that I am, I like to draw from their experience. I like to hear what somebody knows what a courtroom is like, so I can benefit from their knowledge and their wisdom and experience. Now, the nice thing about this bill is it's a farm bill, and we all know where the farms are in our state, and we all know where they are not. And upstate, we've got farms in Western New York. We've heard from some colleagues from Western New York. We've heard from colleagues in Central New York. Now you're going to hear from a colleague from the North Country that represents 4 counties, 41 towns in the city, a lot of farms in each of those 4 counties. All right, so I know what a farm looks like, and I've driven by one, and we've got grocery stores and restaurants in my district too. But what are my personal bona fides? It's very easy to carry a bill that doesn't affect anyone in your district. You're not going to tick off any of your voters if you get it wrong. But we're talking about the agriculture sector. This is not nail salon legislation that we're dealing with. This is the biggest economy sector of our state. If we screw this up, there's problems. And the bad news, what makes it a little worse, is we don't have a lot of margin for error in New York State. We're at the bottom of a lot of the wrong lists. Now, one of our colleagues made this point. I want to drive it home because it's true in Western New York, it's true in upstate New York, in the North Country, about dairy farms. Now, my personal bona fides, while I was serving in the Navy, my wife and I bought a dairy farm. We've owned a dairy farm. I didn't say I was a dairy farmer. We owned a dairy farm, and I watched dairy farmer after dairy farmer work the farm that I owned, trying to make it ends meet. I saw how difficult it was for that tenant of mine to try to operate and make a buck. And one thing that I did learn a little bit about is dairy farmers cannot set their prices. The Yankees go out and get more talent. They need to pay that talent. They can raise ticket prices. God bless them. They better be in first place. But dairy farmers cannot set the price. They're capped. It's set federally. So our dairy farmers are constrained by a price structure that is set by other states that are doing it cheaper. And so if the price of milk is $16 or $17 a hundredweight, and their cost to produce already in New York State is $19, $20, $21 a hundredweight, that's right, this isn't high math, they are losing money. Our farms, our dairy farms, are operating at losses. Who in their right mind would operate something at a loss year in and year out? Well, people that love it, people that value it, people that inherited it, people that only know this, they're going to slug it out hoping that one day New York's going to do something that helps them. That hasn't happened yet. Well, you know, we're not losing farms. Look at our legislation in this chamber. You go in there and you go into LRS and you see the bills that are out there that are subsidizing farms, that are providing grants to farms, that are bending over backwards to preserve open space that is farms so that they don't get turned into subdivisions. The values that we see, the concerns that we see for our farms and our future of our farmers is witnessed in the legislation that our colleagues have put in. So, we're trying to preserve our farmers. The dairy farmers are certainly losing money. Something's going to give sooner or later, and they can't raise their prices. So their hands are tied. This is the same story in the North Country. It's the same story on the dairy farm that I once owned as it is on the dairy farms that we're hearing about in Western New York. Now, the interesting thing that we're going to see when we vote is, and I hope that our colleagues pay attention to, like I said, I would be the last guy to try to opine or give wisdom on the do's and don'ts of mass transit in our urban areas. Not an issue in my district. But my district, the district to the north of me, represented by a colleague on the other side of the aisle, the district to the south of me, represented by a colleague of mine on the other side of the aisle, districts on both sides of the aisle in upstate New York that have farms, you watch how we vote. I can tell you that I have not had a single farm worker in my 7 years in the Assembly ever walk into my office or call my office and expressed a burning desire for this bill. And this bill has been around a lot longer than the 7 years that I have. All right, so I implore you, this is not a good bill for agriculture, our biggest sector of our economy. This is not a bill that the average farm worker, at least in my district, is asking for. This is a bill that the Farm Bureau and the farm owners that I know, and I suspect that we all know, and our friends and neighbors all over the state will tell you, is another straw on the camel's back, and you're messing around with the biggest part of this state's economy. I will be voting no. I encourage all my colleagues to follow suit.